So first things first, what I want you to do is I want you to either go to your command line or to your File Explorer, or if you're on a Mac, you'll just follow me with the basic commands. Okay? So where I'm at right now, I'm in there. Let me back out to my GitHub directory. Okay? And I'm going to clear this so you guys can see it at the top up there. Go to your GitHub directory, and I believe the command, even on Windows, is the same. It's just mkdir, okay? And we'll call this website underscore layout, okay? Once you've done that, I want you to open up VS Code. And let me close that first, save all that. Go up to VS Code. Oh, I have an update. Well, I don't really care. I'm going to open a folder. Let's see, go into Am I missing something? Michael Rogers at GitHub. All right, File, Open Folder. That was weird. Okay. Select your website layout folder. Click Open. And you can close this Get Started, just so we keep everything clean. Inside your website layout, I want you to create a new file. And we'll call this index.html. And we're going to use the Emmet autocomplete here just so we can get some of the basics up. Use the HTML5 Emmet abbreviation. Okay? We'll save that. Then I want you to come over here. We're going to create two folders, actually three folders. We'll create a CSS folder. We're going to click New Folder again. And we're going to create an Images folder. And the last folder is a JavaScript folder. Okay? In your CSS, right-click, say New File. We'll call this style.css. Okay? Let me restart this because it's going to keep doing that to me. Now, I've already created all this code, or for the most part created all the code in my GitHub account, but we're not going to use all of this right now, okay? I am going to grab a few things like the images. And I'm going to put this in my website layout images folder. If you want to grab those images, you can. Okay, just this is actually a JPEG. I don't know why it's... And I'm going to move that. And then I have one last image I'm going to pull down. This is a true archaeologist, by the way. All right, I'm just saving these images into my folder. If you want to go out and grab them off the GitHub site, you can. It's under github.com, Michael Rogers Marianas. Go to my website layout template, and then slash. Once you go to my account, you can navigate to the rest. Okay, but this is just a quick way so we can set this up. All right, I'm going to go back into Visual Studio Code. We got our 3 images there. We got our index, and we have a style. So let's go ahead and begin to set this up. Alan? Okay. Alan, make sure you ask someone after class what's going on the next couple weeks, because I spend a little bit going through that. Yeah.
So how do you create those styles?
So you're going to go to the CSS, say new file, and you're going to give it a name and call it style.css. Right now it's empty. There's nothing in it. But we'll get there in a little bit. All right. So let's go to our index HTML and let's set up some code. All right. So first of all, I'm going to give the title, and I called my website Archaeology of Yesterday, which is probably a stupid title, but it's okay. All right, we're going to lay out our site using the standard semantics that we should be using for a site. Okay, so we're going to start with a header. Okay. And we're going to have a main. And last, we're going to have a footer. Very basic delineation in the site. Header, main, and footer. And if we go into our header, we'll go ahead and hit enter in between the tags. And we will access the image for our header. And this is in our images directory. Okay. And we want to give this an alt name, because we're thinking about those who maybe have some type of visual impairment, or so you need to always give an alternative name to the file that describes it. So we're going to call this header image for archaeology of yesterday. We're going to save that. Okay. Let me bring this over just a little bit so we can make room. Okay. So that's our header image. And if we were to go into Chrome at this point, and let's see, we are in files, / users, right? Or is it capital? It's capital users, Michael Rogers, GitHub. If you hit enter, what does it do? Oh, it's going to give me a problem here. All right, let's do it this way. We'll go to index. We will reveal in Finder. I think you can do the same thing in Explorer. You would just call show in Explorer or whatever. We're going to double click on it. And so far, there's our site, right? We have the title of the document up here in the top. We have a basic image. Okay, keeping that in mind, let's go back. And we want to include, after our header, we want to include some other information. Like I want to include at the top a navigation area. So I'm going to call this nav, right? And inside my nav, I'll have a UL for an unordered list. And inside that, I'll have an LI for a list item. And then I'll use an anchor tag. And for the anchor tag, I'm going to point at index.html, which is the name of this file. And I'm going to call it home. Go to the end. I'll have another list item. Oops. List item, anchor tag, and this one is going to be an about.html. And we'll call this about. We'll do another one, another list item. We'll do another anchor tag, and this is going to be latest.html. And we'll give it a label of latest. And then our last link, another anchor tag, is going to be for contacts. And I'll call it contact.html, and we'll give it a label of contact. All right. So again, we're laying out from the top to the bottom. We have inside of our body, we have a header. We have an image that is the header image. We have a navigation element that it's going to eventually be this list of links across the top for a menu. Then we have the main section and the footer. All right. If we go back to our site and we refresh it, you should see that. Right? Right now it doesn't look too impressive. It looks kind of like, wow, my 4-year-old nephew made that site. Right? Okay, but we're just setting up the bones. And we're going to use our CSS to break it up into the appropriate elements. All right, so we're going to go into the main. And in our main, we're going to create another nav. Because what we really want is kind of like what we saw over here on the CSS site, the website layout, right? We have a header, we have a navigation menu, and over here we have some content. We have the main content, other content. So we're focused on this section here right now. So in our nav, we're basically just going to copy this again and put it over there. But I want to give kind of a label for what it is. So I'm going to use an H2, and I'm just going to call this quick links. Okay? Now that's inside my main. I have that nav. And I'm going to go ahead and create some other links. So I'm going to do another H2 for another header, right? And I'm going to call it other sites. We'll do, again, a UL, an LI, and we do an anchor tag. But this time I'm just going to use a pound symbol because I don't really have these connected to anything. I don't really know if these are real sites. I'm just, some of them I know are real, but we're just trying to set this up, okay? So we're going to call this Archaeology Today. Go to the end, another LI, another anchor. Again, another hashtag, pound symbol, whatever you want to call it. Depends if you're a boomer or not. No one's laughing at my jokes. Yeah. Anyways, all right, this is going to be Smith Sonian. I probably misspelled that. We're going to move on. Do another anchor tag, hashtag, and we'll call this BBC Archaeology. And then our last one, anchor tag, do a hashtag, and this is going to be the London Historical Society. All right, so we've got, now if we think about it, we have this content here set up. So now we're going to focus on the main content. And if we refresh our site, really all we're going to see is just a bunch more links, right? But remember, everything is in a section, its own little grouping. So as we get into this later, we'll show you how to break it apart. All right, let's focus on the next item in our main. And this is going to be an article. And inside of our article, we'll first of all create a div. And inside that div, I'm going to do an H1. And we'll use the term who we are. That's a good thing to have on the front of a page, right? All right, so inside my article then, I'm going to have an image. And we'll go to our images directory. And we're going to choose the true archaeologist, right? Is Indiana Jones a real archaeologist? All right. Doesn't matter what you put in there, really, as long as it's descriptive. All right. After my image, we're going to put in a p tag. And I could spend a lot of time here typing out some text about what I think archaeology is and who we are and all that, but I don't really know because I'm making this up as I go. So I'm going to do like what we said we'll do last time. We're going to go back to the web. We're going to grab a lorem ipsum generator. And for your project, don't fill it with lorem ipsum, because hopefully you're going to talk about something that's important to you, right? You're not going to fill it with gibberish that we're all going to go, well, that's just filler text, okay? For your project, put in real text, all right? But all we're doing here right now is just trying to get some items. All right, so I've copied some text. I'm going to go back in. We'll paste that. When you're laying out your site, if you really want to use lorem ipsum just to get the layouts right, that's fine. But when you submit this, make sure you have real content. Okay? All right. So we got the first one filled out. Let's go ahead and add another paragraph tag, paste in it again. Basically the same text, okay? If we go back to our site and we refresh this, now we've kind of got this information. Now, I want to point out the flow, what's happening. The flow is going top down, right? Everything is in an item and it's just flowing from the very top all the way down the screen. All right, let's go back in again. We're going to create a inside of our article. We're going to do another image. We'll go to our images folder, and we're going to use this free image I found. By the way, it's important that you don't go out and snag on the web images that are copywritten. Make sure you look for free images, okay? Or you sign up for an account that registers the image that you got and says it's free. Or you go to a site and you buy the image from a reputable site, okay? Let me tell you a story of something that happened. Back many, many years ago, I was asked to create a website for this church. And I downloaded a template, put it up, and then the template wasn't necessarily designed for a church. And so they wanted a page on their website to talk about the nursery. And so I said, okay, yeah, I can do that. And I went out and I just thought, well, I just need to find an image of a cute baby. I found an image of a cute baby, I put it on there. 3 months go by. I had already moved from that location in Key West, Florida, back up to Kentucky. And I get an email from some legal group that represented Getty Images. And they said, we are sending you a notice that you need to pay a fine of $65,000. I was like, what? What's this about? And I thought, maybe it's like one of, that Nigerian guy who wants you to buy gold, right? And so I clicked the link to their website, and sure enough, it was a real valid website. And so I reached out to them, and they said, yeah, you illegally used an image that you cannot use, and it's copywritten by Getty Images, and you need to pay. I was like, listen, I'll tell you the good news. I was able to work it out with them. I removed the image, okay? I went to a genuine site, bought an image, put it up there, and then I explained that I was just setting it up for a church. It was a nonprofit, and I had no idea, right? And they said, yeah, we own that image, and you need to be careful. So then they dropped the lawsuit against me. But you have to be so careful that when you're putting images up, especially on the web, you make sure you own the rights to that image, okay? Because you can get in a lot of trouble. All right. So I went out and I found a site that said this was a free image, okay? Not just going out on Google Images and go, oh, that looks like a good image, copy, paste, but, right, don't do that. All right. And this top one, I made this today, so I know that's my own image, okay? So we won't talk about this guy. All right, here we go. So we've got two items now set up in our articles. We need to add some paragraphs. I'm just going to grab those two ipsums again, paste those in. Okay. And then the last area that we have to deal with is what is called this aside, right? Some sites, they'll put, like comments or, ratings or whatever, right? And they'll set it up in a different style. So we're going to do something similar. And on this side, we'll use the HTML tag aside. And inside of this, we'll call it, using an H1, we'll call it recent articles. And the idea being that this site's going to have a list of recent articles that they could click on, if they want to read the latest, right? Although we're not really going to do that, because I'm not going to type out a bunch of articles just for a layout. All right, but you get the idea. So we're moving on here. We're going to surround these in block quotes. And sometimes when you're clicking on these articles, what they do is the whole article itself is a hyperlink. So we got to think about how we would do that. And this is where I'm just going to use a anchor tag. Again, because we don't have an article, I'm just going to use a hashtag for right now. And inside my anchor tag, I've got this space. Now, you could, if you had like small thumbnail images you wanted to put in there, you could put thumbnail images. Because people are more apt to click on an image than actually read a text, believe it or not. If you think about the sites you go to, if you have to read, you're like, I don't want to read. What? I just want to show me a picture, and I'll click on the picture and go to the next one. Honestly, front-end web pages, if you want to retain a person to look at your page, you want to set it up with images with very minimal text. All right. Even if you go to the front page of, say, CNN or Fox News or any of the other big news sites, they really start with like these thumbnails that grab your attention, and then with a small piece of text. So it's up to you, but for right now I'm going to use text because I don't have a lot of images to go find. All right, so we're going to fill this with a first one. We're going to call this H4, and I'm going to call it Egyptian Knows found. I'll use the paragraph tag, and I'm going to say, let's see, nose of Egyptian Queen Nefertari. Misspelled her name tremendously there. Found in ancient burial site along with other items. This bizarre coincidence, right? All right. So I've got some basic stuff, and because we're just trying to set up our site, we're going to copy this a couple of times. Block quote, block quote, block quote, block quote, block quote. All right? All right, so let's go back now and take a look at our site and see what we have. Newsflash, recent articles, right? And there are the articles. These are the news flashes. This is who we are, right? I think we're missing something. Let's go back. If we go over here to, yes, I'm missing an H2 for latest news. And there we go. Okay, so we've got everything laid out. But now we need to really lay it out. So let's go into our CSS. And one of the first things that you really want to do with your CSS, and the reading this week talks about it, and that is resetting the style. Okay? Does anyone know why we want to reset the style? Any ideas? So the primary reason for this is not all browsers are created equal, right? There are a bunch of web browsers out there now. Some for devices, some for tablets, some for laptops, right? Some for your phones. Some that are designed to work on a gaming platform, and they all like implement things a little differently. And some, they have their own custom styles for their browsers that they want to force. And this is why we need to reset, okay? So when we're doing a reset, we want to do something at the top of our site. We're going to start off with an address, an article, and a side, and this by no means is a complete, but we're trying to get as many of these as we can. And you'll notice right now I'm hitting some of the sectional groups that we've already typed. H5, H6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Header, HTML, main, image, list, nav, section, UL, span, OL, and a paragraph. All right, so we have all of those listed, and we need now to do some basic things. So we're going to start with our font size, and we're going to make sure that our font size is set to 100%. Next, we're going to set our margin, and we're going to set by default the margin on everything to 0. We're going to set our padding by default for everything to 0. We're going to do a vertical align on everything to baseline. All right, we're going to save that, and if we go back to our site now and we refresh, nothing happened, right? Because this is Chrome, and Chrome pretty much follows the baseline. But let's go ahead and set the other items here. Let's go ahead and say for our nav that we're going to have our ULs all have a list style of none. And we're going to say the list style for the image is none. Now if we go back and look at that and refresh it, oh, guess what? We forgot to do something. How many know what we forgot to add up here? Yep, the link. So we need to reference CSS and then styles. Okay, now let's go back and refresh it. And you can see it changed quite a bit. Let's go back to our style sheet, and I'm going to take out just this piece for right now so you can see. Did I save it? There we go. Yeah. All right. So the vertical line baseline, the taking out the padding, margin, font size, right? All of that changes it. So we're going to continue with it. We got our list style set to none. We're going to set now our links. We're going to say on the nav, anchor tags. We're going to set those to text decoration of none. And if we refresh, all of that text decoration goes away. No more underline, right? Except for down here, because this is different. If we right-click on this and inspect, we can see that this is a side blockchain anchor tag, right? So we could do a block quote anchor tag and do the same. There. That also took care of the bottom, right? All right. Any questions so far? So let's go ahead and do this. We want to set the height of our HTML page. We're going to say that the height is 100%. We're resetting the styles here, okay? And for the body, we're going to do a line height of 1. Let's save it and see what it does. Okay, it took out the height, it changed the height of this now, of the text. We're going to set our width of our site to 95%. Okay, we're going to set the min width to 640 pixels. We're going to set the max width to 940 pixels. And we do this because, as the text is going to tell you, studies on how people do with reading, if the screen size is too big or is it too small, then it makes it really hard to read it. Now, we haven't gotten into media queries yet. Media queries actually measure the width of your screen, and it readjusts the website for the width of your screen. We haven't gotten into that yet, but the reason we're setting it for these parameters is because based on what's best for most people when they read. All right. One of the things that we want to do, though, on our site is we really want it centered over, right? We want the page to be center of the page, to be moved over a little bit. So let's do that by first saying that our margin left is auto, and our margin right is auto. We'll save that, come back in again and look at it, and now it's moved it over. Okay, it's kind of figured out a little bit. And then we're going to set the minimum height of our body to 100%. Okay. All right, so we got some things. It's starting to come along a little bit, but let's keep looking at it. That's for our body. So now we need to do some changes here. We want this to be sized to the size of our site. Right now, if we look at it, this is actually farther out than the 95% ratio that we gave it. So let's go in here and we'll say body. We're going to do this child command, header, child command, image, and we're going to give a display of block, and we'll give a width of 100%. All right, so we do that, we'll refresh, and now it actually sizes it back to the other parameter, which was 95%. So think of it this way. If I set the size of this room to be these parameters, and I had a ladder that I haven't really figured out how to size, and it extends all the way out the door, right? That's what was happening before with that image, that header image. It was just going right off the max size. And so now I'm telling it, that image, you have to be sized to 100% what's allowable of the room size, okay? All right, so that's our image. Now let's set the height, max height of our image. So we're going to do body, whoops, wrong spot. Come down here. We'll do body, and this is the size of the header, by the way. And we're going to specify that height as 50%. So refresh that. Okay. Go down to the next. And the textbook also specified we do some other things, like set our div to the height of 40px, set our display as table cell, and set our vertical align to middle. We're going to address the H1 now, and we'll set the H1 to a font size of 1.4 EM, and our line height of 2 EM. Okay. All right, we're almost there now where we're going to start breaking and moving things around on the screen. Let's go ahead and address those, our top header for a moment. So we'll do body, child parameter, header, child command again, nav, and then the item right underneath it, the li. And we're going to give this a width of 10% and a background color of black. All right, so let's go ahead and refresh. So there it is so far. All right. This is going to make sense as we go, so just try to follow along here and and keep up. Next, we're going to address from the header again, child tag nav, and then the anchor. And we're going to give this a width of 100%. We're going to adjust the color, the text color, to white. And we're going to give a padding of 5 pixels on all sides. Okay? Now we want to cause these labels to stack to the right. And the way we do that is we use the float command. Now with the float command, you can say float left, float right. I think there's a couple others. Let's go ahead and take a look at this real quick and lay it out. So we're going to go back to our nav, and we want to put a class name on this. So we're going to say class, and I don't know why I didn't do this a minute ago when we were creating it, upper menu. Okay? Class upper menu. And for this one down here, I believe we're going to call this class lower menu. All right, go back to your style. We're going to say nav, and to address the class, we use the dot syntax. So dot upper dash menu, and then the child element, li, and we're going to give this a display of block, and we're going to float this left. Now watch what happens as I refresh this. It took that UL item, and instead of stacking it, now it's telling it put it out to the left, cause each one to float to the left. So what that means is this floats to the left, and because all the LI tags are display block float left, this one floats right next to it to the left, the next one right next to it to the left, and so on and so forth. Okay? All right, going on here, let's take a look at the body. So I want the body of this text, I want to change the font and some of the color of the text, right? So what we can do is we'll say, we'll address the color, and we'll first, address the color, and I'm going to use an RGB, and the RGB for this color is going to be 50, 50, 50. All right, save that, come back and refresh, and now the color of this text has changed. It's no longer black, it's now a little bit dimmer, okay? We're going to set the font family, and I love the way that that Visual Studio Code already does this for us, because I really don't enjoy typing a lot of code. So we want to use a sans serif type font, and Trebuchet is sans serif, so is Verdana Tahoma. So I'm going to use this one first. A sans serif font is a font that doesn't have the little, you know what I'm talking about? Like your Time Romans font, they'll have the curve on the edges of the letter that come down to a point. Those are called serifs. Sans serif means they're getting rid of those little curvy things, curvy bits. All right, so we'll go back and refresh our text, and there we go. Now our site, the font across our site is changing. Okay, all right, let's go back in again. So we've addressed the body. We're told that all of these fonts need to change. Let's go ahead now and set the main block. So we're going to do body, child command, main. Again, we're going to use display block. We're going to clear what was set. Make sure we're going to clear the left. And we're going to set a margin top of 25 pixels. All right, so we do that, we refresh it, and some of this is now kind of giving us some spacing there. All right, so now let's address the main nav lower menu. So we'll type main, child element, nav. We use the class notation. We'll say lower dash menu. If this was an ID, what would we use instead of a dot? Exactly, hashtag, thank you. All right, so for this one, again, we'll use the display block. We're going to set the float to the left. Whoops. We're going to set the width of this section over here. We want the width of this one piece inside of the main content area. We only want it to be a certain percentage of the overall. Now, why would I use percentages, by the way, as opposed to pixels? What do y'all think? Why would I do that? Any idea? Why I would use the width of this particular element and define it in percentages? Have y'all ever taken your browser and said, well, I'm just going to grab it with the little crosshairs and squish it up a little bit? And then open another browser over on this side and squish it up a little bit. What happens if it doesn't have a width dimension specified in percentages?
It gets cut off.
Exactly. The viewport for that area cuts it off, and now you can't see what's, because it's all cut off on this side of the screen, right? If you specify a pixel on the screen, you can see the little pixel there. Can you all see the pixel? Let's see if my microphone will stretch this far. This is going to be fun. Tiny, tiny little dots right there. Right? If you look on your own screen and stare at really close, without going crazy, you'll see those tiny little dots. Those are the pixel dimensions. They're actual physical dimensions of the size that you're specifying. So when you think about that, if I specify the size of my site is 960 pixels, right? That means it is a fixed width. Now, we're going to get into what's called media queries and how you can adjust things, right? Because we want our sites to size out, right? We don't want all of the text to be sized just in this small little column all the time. If we expand out the page, we want the text to expand out with it, right? So in this instance, for the column on our left side, we're going to specify that it has a width of 20%. And I'm still going to specify some things like in pixels, like I'm going to specify my margin here of 25 pixels. But over time, we may actually want to change that and use something different. I'm going to specify a margin on the top of 10 pixels. And if I refresh this now, you see what happened? Because I've set it to left, and I've set the width. This section right here is 20% of the allowable space, which means that the item right below it says, oh, I have room now. I can slide right on up. And that's what's happened. So this who we are now slides right up. Let's continue with it and cause the other items to do that as well. Let's go ahead and first specify some things about our main nav h2. So we'll say main nav h2. We're going to give this a padding top of 20 pixels and a padding bottom of 5 pixels. Refresh that. Minor changes occurred there. It kind of spread it out a little bit, if you can see that. Okay. If you didn't catch it, let me cut it out and refresh so you can see what happened. Right? It's kind of all stuck together. If I put it back in, it spaced it out a little bit, made it look a little bit more pretty. Okay? All right, so that's still on the nav inside the main. Let's go to add another one here. We'll go main, child element nav dot lower menu li, and I'm going to give this a padding top of 10 pixels. I'm going to go ahead and add another one, main child element nav lower menu li anchor tag, and we're going to specify some of the color that is over in that area. So we'll do RGB, and I'm going to set it to 129, 129, 129. I tell you, working in Visual Studio Code is a pleasure here. It makes it so easy just to tab through these and do it. All right, we're going to refresh it. Okay, so we've got some of that set. Let's go ahead and now deal with the center section. The center section of our site is this. We've got our quick links here. Now we're going to put the center section, right? And this is particularly, this is our article. So we're going to use main, child element, greater than symbol, article. We're going to say display block. We're also going to cause this to float left. We're going to give this a width of 50%. And this could change for you. Maybe you want to size up your sections a little differently. It all depends on what works best for you. And I'm going to give this a margin right of 25 pixels. Okay? Let's go back to our site again. We'll refresh it. And things are starting to pop in place now, as you can see. Yeah. I want the image to wrap, but we'll deal with that in a second. We've got all our recent articles over here. I've got my news here, and I don't think I've typed any content for my footer yet, but we'll address that in a little bit. Let's go back in again. Let's go ahead and address that image. So we're going to say body article image, And we want our image to float a different direction. I want it to float right. And I want to give my image a specified width of just 40% of what it used to be. And I'm going to specify margin of 0px, 0, 10px, 10px. Save that, refresh it, and now the text is now wrapping around my image because I told it to float right. Okay. All right, let's go back again. Let's set our paragraph with a display block. And we're going to deal now with our section on the side, the main aside. The section on the side is this portion right here. All right, so we've got some of it already set up. Again, we're going to do display block, right? You're probably getting tired of seeing that, but it's very important. We're going to give this a float left as well. Even though it's already floating up left, if we size this, depending on which display you're on, it could drop back down below again. So we want to make sure that we size it appropriately. We specify this appropriately. And we're going to specify its width as 20%. Okay. Let's go ahead and deal with this annoying text here and the layout of this. So we'll go to main, child element, aside, anchor tag, and we're going to set the text decoration to none. We'll set the color. I'm going to use RGB again. And the nice thing here is you can also click on these and hover and select a particular color you want. And you can see it's automatically changing it down at the bottom. I love that about Visual Studio Code. But for our instance, we want to, I want to set this to a certain color to make it stand out just a little bit differently. So I'm going to say 80, 65, and 2. And this kind of gives us a burnt color, sort of. If we refresh this now, whoops, cancel. What did I mess up on?
You get RGBs and red.
Ah, look at that. I've got a double RGB. Thank you for seeing that. All right, so we refresh that, and you kind of get a little bit, it stands off in a different color. When you're thinking about the palette for your website, there are some great sites to deal with this, trying to think about what colors to match things to. If you do website color palettes, there's a whole bit of color theory. Some of them they use, let's find the generator here. Yeah, this is a great site, by the way. So if you're designing your site and you want to make sure you select colors that make sense. When my wife asks me to pick a color for painting, I often like, I don't know, you do that better than I do that, right? And if any of you are dating, you'll probably find that your girlfriend does the same thing sometimes. Like, oh, you know, I like this color. And you'd be like, I don't really care, right? I guess I'm resonating with someone here. All right. But anyways, colors do matter, and so this is a cool site. You can actually generate your color. Say you have a particular color that you want. It will generate the color sequences that actually make sense for color theory. And this could be a nice tool for you, because then you could decide how, what color would make sense that matches, say, your headers and so forth. All right. I thought maybe this kind of matches a little bit. It stands off different. I don't know. But I digress. All right. So we're here at this point. Christian, did you need to go?
Not yet, sir.
Not yet? Okay.
5:10. Yeah.
All right. So let's go ahead and set the padding for our aside. And we want to set the padding on the anchor tags in the H4. So we're going to say aside, anchor, H4. And the reason I'm doing it exactly that way is if you look at the aside, it's aside, yeah, it is aside, anchor, H4, right? I'm giving its nested relationship right down into it. All right? Okay, so let's specify a few things here. We're going to give some padding here. I'm going to specify a padding on the top of 10 pixels. We'll specify padding on the bottom, 5 pixels. Again, we're going to set color, and I'm going to use RGB. And this is going to be 109, 109, 109. We'll save that, and we'll refresh. Now we have a little bit different display layout and design to those portions. All right. We didn't include yet our footer. So let's go ahead and go back into our index HTML and add a little bit of information about our footer. Sometimes in your footer, you're going to want, you're going to want to put like a sitemap or whatever. And right now we have nothing down here. So if we go into our index HTML, we go down to our footer, you can see it's empty. Let's break our footer up into divs. So I'm going to create 3 divs. Okay. Actually, let's create 4 divs. We'll call this, we'll go in here and we'll give this a an H2. We'll call it careers. And hashtag latest job openings. Right? Okay. In the first one, I'm going to enter on that. I'm going to give this an H2, and I'll call this contact information. And inside of that, I'm going to use the address tag. And inside my address tag, I'll say written by. I'll use an anchor. And have you all covered this yet on how to change an anchor into a email link, right? To do that, you say mail to, and then you type in the email address that right? That's the email, and then if you do that, that's the display, right? The other thing that's kind of cool you can do is, let's do this. Let's say a BR tag for break line. And I'm going to say, let's see, work number, anchor tag, and you can do the tel. And that's pretty cool because on your phones, when you click on links that have the tel prefix inside of there, it will actually, your phone will recognize it and call out. Maybe you've probably seen that on some websites, right? You open your phone, you see the phone number, and you're tapping on it, and nothing's happening. You're like, work, dadgummit. It's because the guy who wrote the code didn't use the tel prefix. So you use the tel, and you can say 670 123. Haha, you thought I was going to give you my phone number, didn't you? 1 2 3 4 5, right? Or you could just say call me, right? And the interesting thing about that, even down here at the bottom, when you click on that, it's going to actually, depending on what you have loaded, it'll try to open it up through Skype. It'll try to open it through different things. Yeah. All right. Any questions there before I go on? All right. So we haven't really laid out the information here, the CSS. We just got to get our content set up. Okay. So we have the address. We're going to add another address inside of this one. And you guessed it, we're going to put an address. Do you guys have your physical addresses now? This isn't my physical address, but I found it pretty cool now. They actually came by and gave me a physical address for my home, and makes it easier when you're applying for credit cards, because you can actually say, yeah, this is my physical address. All right. So that information now is set there. So let's see, what else do we need to add? Yes. We need to add another H2 in this div, and we'll call this our sitemap. And we'll basically, we're going to snag here at the top this section, come down here, paste it in. And I'm going to use footer menu as my class name there. Okay. And then the last one, a lot of sites, they do this. They'll have a what they call meta. And it's usually information for whoever's going to log into that site. So I'll just say login. All right. We've got all of our footer information out there now, and it's really a mess. It doesn't make much sense, but it's there. So go ahead and go back into your CSS now. My daughter is pinging me like crazy inside of Messenger. All right, we're going to go down to the bottom in our CSS, and we'll specify some basic things here. We'll use body, footer, div, and we'll give this a display block. We're going to say float left. Give this a width of 30%. Did I spell that wrong? Oh no, there it is. We're going to give it height of 100%. Now keep in mind, I'm actually talking about the elements inside the footer, right? I'm telling each element inside the footer, these divs are going to float left, they're going to be width of 30%, and a height of 100, right? That's the available space inside that footer. So take up 100% of the height of whatever that footer has. Take up a 30% for each div. I'm going to give this a padding, general padding of 10 pixels. When you do that, it's padding on all four sides, okay? And we're going to set the background color to black. And we'll set the color to silver. And then the last thing I want to do set my footer text decoration to none. Okay. Now the layout is starting to come together. We have some of the information set here. Of course, now we need to specify the colors. So we'll come over here and we'll say color white. And I'm not sure why that didn't work, so let's take a look at it. Let's see here. Footer div nav. Footer div nav anchor. All right. Not sure. Let's take a look at what we got here. Footer, div, nav. What's that?
Is that child elements included? When you did the footer?
You're talking about right here?
Yeah, when you did when you put footer and anchor. I mean, when I removed it, it changed it to white. Just put the footer A and then put the.
Yeah, it didn't work. Let's see, footer div. I'm about to just go old school here. Footer div nav ul li. There we go. It changed those over here. These did not change. I think it's because if we inspect those, that is div, yeah, so that's a div A. Whereas these are UL, UIs, and these are, what is this one? That's also a div A. So footer div A. There's a better way to do this in CSS to address all of those individuals, because we shouldn't have to be so repetitive in writing our styles. And that seemed to have taken care of those over there as well. Okay, so that gives us our footer. It's styled out. We still have other work to do. Like it'd be nice to go ahead and get our menu tab, the black box, to go all the way across the top for a header. To add some colors around our quick links and other sites, who we are, and so forth. But that is it for right now. Any questions?